Hey, Jason Bradley from Community Solutions, Minnesota. We just started an Instagram account that I want to tell you guys about because we're finding all this great stuff across the state of Minnesota, and we have to share it with you. You're going to find exclusive content that is not going to be anywhere else on the web. We're going to give you behind-the-scenes looks at our podcasts, our tour of roundabouts, the mixed-use development that we find, our keynote addresses, all this stuff that is going to have a great story along with it that you can share with your friends and your neighbors so that they understand what's going on in their cities as well. Where can you find it? COMM Solutions MN on Instagram. Thank you very much. Thank you from the bottom of our hearts. So now please share it, get out there, and let's tell our story, Minnesota. Thank you.
Gonna pick up my guitar and play just like yesterday. Then I'll get on my knees and pray we don't get fooled again. This is the Community Solutions Podcast. Jason Bradley, Andrew Richter, back yet again.
Once again, I have no idea what song that is. You stump me damn near every time.
You don't want to guess who?
No, I don't want to guess who. Oh, Who?
The Who.
Oh.
Not the Guess Who, but the Who. Yes.
Who? Oh,
yes,
okay.
the Who. In fact, this
not the Guess Who.
It'll be appropriate because the last line of that song is what? Meet the new boss, same as the old boss. Yep. We'll get into that in a moment. We're going to talk about ranked choice voting today. We're going to talk before
Somebody
that.
flushed the toilet.
Yeah, that's how I feel. But no, this will be good because a lot of people don't understand it, and when we get to that portion, I think that you'll have a new appreciation for it because it's fantastic. That's
yeah,
all
I think, and with the recent elections in Minneapolis and St. Paul, who used ranked choice voting, of course, Duluth voted it down.
Yes,
by referendum, but the whole state of Maine is going to ranked choice voting, although that's tied up in the courts right now, I guess.
Yeah.
It is a phenomenon that, again, is going to go to local governments first, like we keep talking about it, and it's going to go from city to city or something like that. And it's in Maine, it's already made up its way up into the legislature, and my guess is it's going to continue local elections first, because that's where new ideas can get in much quicker and simpler, like what we talk about other issues, whether that's raising the tobacco minimum wage, blah, blah, blah. Nobody's arguing about that in the state capitol. They're trying to implement those and get around that and do it locally.
Yeah, that is exactly what they're doing, and we're going to get into that in a moment because I think it's too important not to talk about this topic.
Yeah, I mean, how we vote
are talking about it.
And they've talked about it in Crystal too on the Charter Commission. How we vote is about as important of a topic as we're going to have.
It's true. It is true. Before we go there, however, how are you?
Couldn't be better.
That's good. That's good. You know. I tell you, I just got a little bit older, so I'm not appreciating that as much. But I'm kind of tossed up about this. It's like we go into daylight savings time, so I gain an hour of sleep on my birthday, which is nice. But then the Vikings have a bye week, so I don't know which really. Could I do without the extra hour of sleep if I got the game, or I don't know.
Well, for me. Vikings and nap time kind of go one and the same, so it's all right as far as I'm concerned.
Yeah, you do realize that they have a winning record.
I think I realize that.
Doing really well.
We'll see. I mean, they are a team that my entire life has let me down, so I don't, we've talked about this previously, but the year they went 15-1 when I was in college, I was a true believer. I've never forgotten the game against New Orleans. I can't remember, or I can't forget losing 41-0 to the Giants. I can't remember 1987, Darren Nelson dropping a touchdown pass from Wade Wilson.
I still remember where I was. I was in the truck coming back from...
I've seen 4 NFC championship games and no Super Bowls.
Yeah.
Now, I know the generation in front of me saw 4 Super Bowls and no wins. So it's kind of they're just a team that, I hate to say it, I just don't get on their bandwagon anymore because I know come January, when I'm supposed to be celebrating a new year and my birthday, which is January 10th, I'll be 41. And by the way, on my 39th birthday is when Blair Walsh missed the field goal at the Gophers TCF Stadium.
Right.
Missed that on my birthday. I was on my 14th gin, and I barely saw it. No, I'm just kidding. I was on about my 4th because I had won $200 playing pull tabs, and looked up, and I just had a bad feeling. I can't explain it, but with the Vikings, there's always doom that comes over me when there's a key play.
Right.
And all of a sudden I saw him miss that field goal. I'm like, yep, same old Vikings.
Yeah, there's that game. There's 41-0. That still kind of sticks in my craw a little bit. But, it's about the chase, right?
But here's the thing. The year they went 15-1, I thought they were like the 87 Twins. I thought they were just destined to win it.
Right.
I mean, I had no doubt they were going to win it.
Right.
I was the most shocked person on the face of the earth when they didn't. The Atlanta Falcons, I mean, who the heck? Chris Chandler is your starting quarterback? Mm-hmm. I still to this day can't believe they lost that game. I mean, I've never watched it again. It's been on ESPN Classic. It's on YouTube right now.
Oh, I'm sure it is.
And I'm sick to my stomach watching that game.
Yeah, I can't watch it again. I can't put myself through that. It's just too much. But I tell you, I mean, I would rather have the Vikings, and have them lose when they lose, how they lose, make things exciting, than to have been the Detroit Lions for most of my life, or to have been the 1980s Tampa Bay Buccaneers.
But the Buccaneers got a Super Bowl win
after they got a new stadium, new uniforms.
Well, after the 20 years of being terrible.
Oh, I mean, those were terrible.
I don't know what's worse, the orange Tampa Bay uniforms or the old 1980s Houston Astros uniforms. Since, they won the World Series. I mean, the Astros uniforms, go look up a picture of Mike Scott or Glenn Davis or somebody like that from like that 86 team. Look at those uniforms. Barazoodle. It's just bad.
Yeah, well, we've been talking.
Anyhow.
Yeah, we've been talking a lot of sports lately. We should probably make sure that we get some politics in. We are going to, before we get into ranked choice voting, we're going to take a trip down the local lowdown here. We're going to have our second installment of this because the first one, I enjoyed it so much. So the second one, we're going to start in St. Cloud. The St. Cloud Times had reported, and it was on KSTP and a bunch of other places. But, one of our favorite things is roundabouts. We just recently stuck a video of us going around the roundabout to get into Wayzata, downtown Wayzata.
The one-way roundabout. Oh. You couldn't get on one way.
And you couldn't even enter on the east side of the roundabout.
It's like you got bad roundabouts, horrible roundabouts, and absolutely god-awful roundabouts. And that's right up there with Mankato for me. I mean, right on Adams Street there. But, on Wayzata, that was awful. Oh,
that was terrible. So, roundabouts being one of our favorite things. A 71-year-old St. Cloud man died Tuesday evening after being struck by a car while walking near St. Cloud State University. So this guy was crossing in a roundabout, and he got hit and died.
Huh. Well, that's interesting. Now, I know St. Cloud. I know the east side of St. Cloud pretty good. Where the heck is the roundabout over there?
It does not give the address here, but it's near the university.
Well, wait. University, you got the Civic Center, you've got the red carpet right over there. What's...
Fifth Avenue South and University Drive.
So that's got to be right on campus.
Yeah.
Or just off.
Right. Yep. So the guy was going around the roundabout, and as he exited the roundabout, that's when he hit Abdi, the fellow that died.
So roundabouts, supposedly are so safe. I wonder what this roundabout, did it have sunflowers growing in the middle or something like that? Because I find roundabouts not very safe. I find people whipping around the corner. I find you're unable to see oncoming traffic because some morons planted something in the middle. I mean, I have not found them safer, and nobody should be. If there was a four-way stop, I don't see how anybody would have gotten run over.
Right.
I mean, somebody would have to go through it at 80 miles an hour to kill somebody.
Right. Yeah, and even going around that one in Wayzata, I mean, there was some van pulled over at the side. They had a truck pulled up in the middle that was
what the heck was
working on things.
What the hell was that?
It was kind of crazy. I don't know. Crazy stuff. So roundabouts, and I want to go back when we had that roundabout show. We quoted all these statistics about how there were fewer deaths. There were, supposedly because at least
life-altering injuries or something,
and these were at the roundabouts that they reported anyways. This wasn't at all roundabouts.
Yeah,
well, here's one that they didn't report on in the state that ended up in a death. So.
Well, I hate to, I don't know, maybe state the obvious, but there's an element of danger when you got motor vehicles. I mean, there just is. There are people who've been killed by trains. There are people who've been killed by light rail.
Oh, plenty of them.
So, I think I still consider roundabouts a solution in search of a problem, and I still don't understand why there's one on Highway 12, and I'll just never get that. I'm sorry, Highway 7, I should say.
Right.
Not 12. I'll still just never understand that. So I don't get the rise of them. I don't understand it, but that's just me.
Yeah, I don't get it either. I don't think that they're helpful, and to poor Mr. Abdi, it certainly was not helpful.
No, definitely not. I'll tell you what. Our other favorite, our favorite city.
Oh, yes.
New Hope.
Oh, you have something on New Hope?
Well, they've got on there, they talk about their preliminary levy going up 7.9%.
Oh, boy.
Compared, that is the smallest, by the way, you people in New Hope, that is the smallest increase in the last 2 years. That says it right on their website. I just want you to know that. 7.9%, but don't worry, it's the smallest increase in the last 2 years. So they brag about that. I didn't know. Okay, now, they have the salary notification on their website. Now, there's a law in Minnesota. Statute 471.701, that all cities with populations of 15,000 or more, which is the minority in Minnesota, have to publish the salaries of their 3 highest paid employees. And keep in mind, this is salaries, not salaries plus benefits. Remember, we as taxpayers get the total bill.
Yes.
The city manager pulling down 148,497 simoleons.
Oh, boy.
The police chief, that they call the director of police, I don't know why they give it a different name, he pulls down 122 a year.
Wow.
The director of HR and administrative services, the hell is that?
I don't know.
Deputy city manager, maybe? I mean,
maybe, unless they have a separate HR person.
There's not many city of 20,000?
I don't know. It depends how many employees they have.
I would guess 100, maybe. Is that a good guess?
So you have one person that's, I don't know, it's a head, so you'd think it's a head of a department, figuring out payroll, figuring out...
No, that's finance. They don't do that.
They don't do... No. Yeah, that's true. Finance takes care of that.
Finance, payroll, accounts receivable, accounts payable, that's all the finance department.
Benefits, hiring and firing?
That's the city manager.
Well, the actual hiring
the
actual hiring and firing would come from the city manager, but it would have to go through human resources.
Yeah, you'd have to have a preliminary interview, probably.
Yeah.
Anyway, that person pulls down 115.
Wow.
Now, so you got 3 employees making about $400,000, and then you add benefits on top of that. You're probably looking at over $500,000.
Yeah, probably
For those 3 employees. Just so you know, you taxpayers in New Hope. But remember, you're getting the smallest increase you've gotten in the last 2 years.
That's right.
That's 7.9%. So they're really cutting costs.
And let me point this out as well, New Hope, because this is fun. When we've spoken to people in other cities, like in New Brighton, also other cities have expressed this to us. I believe that they did when we were talking with the group from somewhere up north as well, that they seem to always use New Hope as a comparison to, hey, we're not spending as much as New Hope is.
Yeah, we're not this bad.
Yeah, so you've got that going for you as well. Because they always make the comparisons to show where they sit among the other cities. New Hope's always in there as a high spender.
Yeah, and we talk about other things. I mean, that's the tax levy.
Yeah.
That doesn't include doubling the franchise fee. It doesn't include their new city hall at $20 million and all that.
Right.
So remember what's not in there. And that's always the lessons that we give to people. Remember what's there and what's not there.
Mm-hmm.
So if you just stare at the levee till you can't see a forest in the trees, we've talked about this in Crystal too, about where the levee had increased, but the outdated spending has gone way down because they're not going to do assessments and they're not going to bond for big projects.
Right.
So there's a total financial picture that you have to look at.
Right.
You citizens of New Hope, boy.
New Hope, New Hope, New Hope. Hopefully, over the next couple of election cycles, you guys will be able to turn it around and get a majority.
Yeah, and undo the damage somehow.
Yeah.
But you're going to inherit all this borrowing. You're going
Yeah.
to have to pay that off till over 15 or 20 years, and there's nothing you can do about it.
But it's got to start somewhere, and you'll just have to be able to tell the story so that people understand. Because if you don't step in and start taking a hold of it, it's not going to ever get better. So, another city that we really love a lot, Brooklyn Park. There's been some issues on the city council up there. Mark Maida, who...
He's got something with the fire chief there, and the fire chief's out.
He's got something with the fire chief. He's also got something with council member Rich Gates.
Yeah, they don't like each other.
No. He had alleged that Kathy Gates, who is Rich Gates' mother, made a threatening gesture toward him sometime during the August 14th council meeting. So this is a little while ago. Mm-hmm. So he had Maida had filed a report with Brooklyn Park Police Department. This coming from hometownsource.com.
Which is allegedly the new Sun Post.
Right, allegedly. Then the case got passed on to Hennepin County Sheriff's Office, and what this threatening comment was supposedly a finger gun. Supposedly, she was texting her son in regards to an issue that the council was discussing, and then this had to do with the fire code, right? Because there's the issue with the fire chief as well. Maida had voiced a disagreement with one aspect of an amendment, and that's when he thinks that he saw Kathy Gates allegedly making a finger gun gesture with her index finger and thumb and pointed it at her head.
At her head or at his head?
At her head. Oh, okay. So apparently...
so she pretended to commit suicide?
A fantasy suicide is threatening to... if what's more threatening, if I make a finger gun and point it at you or if I point it at me? Usually, it
depends on the context, I
guess. I don't know. I guess if I made that gesture, it would be like, oh, this is so dumb, kill me now. Yeah. It would be that, not I'm gonna put a bullet in your head. That's not usually how you would signify that, by pointing it at your own head, I guess. But I don't know. Anyways, so there was this whole kerfuffle going on, and so Councilmember Maida says that she did it. Richard Gates says it didn't happen that way, that it had to do with the text communication that they were having. It wasn't intended as a threat. So, yeah, and in fact, it says it here, down here, it was to her own head to say, basically, shoot me. Are we done with this yet? See, and that's what I just said, that I would have speculated it was. It says here that he texted his mother back to say, watch what you do. I'm sure he's watching you. It's crazy. So this whole thing went on, and I guess the new news on this is that Kathy Gates has not been charged with making a threatening gesture toward Mr. Maida. So,
wow.
Yeah.
How much time was taken up at this council meeting?
I don't know.
Listen to these two squabble. And by the way, if you're Rich Gates, stay off your damn phone. And it's so disrespectful to be a councilman and to be on your phone. I'm sorry, it is. I don't care if mommy's texting you. I don't know if he lives with his mom or what. I don't know. But it is just, I just cannot get over how unprofessional that is. I mean, if that was going on during a meeting,
right,
that she was sending him messages, that's ridiculous. And that's not fair, because if you're in a forum or an open forum, you don't have the floor.
Right.
So you shouldn't be able to communicate with people during that time. So just as a side note, everything about that story seems stupid to me, but that's just...
Well, that's Brooklyn Park. I mean, you have that. You have the whole thing with Susan Fogg.
Oh, jeez. Fox Spa, yeah.
Yeah. And nobody can seem to verify if she's ever actually done anything or what that she says she's done. Your city is a mess, Brooklyn Park.
Yeah, and latest word I've heard is because I don't think Jeff Lundy's running again.
No.
That she is going to run for mayor.
That's what I've heard.
But you
guys would get exactly...
Yeah, she's not up. Her seat's not up. So if she wants to do it, this is the time to do it. And she's funded. Once again, we did a show on people who got their money from outside sources. She's funded almost exclusively by people outside of Brooklyn Park.
Yes, that's true.
So you're going to get what you pay for.
Yep, so buyer beware on that. If you're up in Brooklyn Park, I think you have some choices to make. One more little segment here on the local lowdown before we get to ranked choice voting, and this is actually positive stuff. There's a number of board vacancies. Scott County had just put a notice out there. I'll go through them quick. All Hazards Committee, there's a vacancy. Board of Adjustment Planning Advisory Commission, that's an important one. 7 vacancies. If you're in Scott County, you guys have a chance probably to get a majority on that, I would say, with 7 vacancies. Community Corrections Advisory Board, 3 vacancies. Community Development Agency Board, 1 vacancy. Extension Committee, 3 vacancies. Human Services Resource Council, 9 vacancies. There's another one you could probably go get control of right now. Library Board of Advisors, besides being useless, there's 1 vacancy on that. Mental Health Local Advisory Council, 4 vacancies. Parks Advisory Commission, 7 vacancies. There's another one you can go grab.
How many are on? Does it say how many are on each in total? Like if there's 7 vacancies, is that like a 12-member board or?
This one says, let's see, the Park Advisory Commission is comprised of 7 members, one from each commissioner district and 2 at-large members.
So they've got 9 and there's 7 vacancies.
Yeah.
Of 9 seats, 7 are vacant.
Wait, no, there's 7. They're all vacant. So
if there's 2 at-larges, though,
right, 2 at-large. There's 1 from each commissioner district, so there must be 5 commissioner districts.
No.
And 2 at-large. Well,
there's 2 at-larges and there's 7 districts.
The Parks Advisory Commission is comprised of 7 members, though, it says.
Oh, really? Okay.
So
there's
I don't
only
know.
5 commissioners?
Yeah, so there are 7 vacancies, 1 in each commissioner district, and 2 at-large.
All right, we say it enough times we can figure out how to add.
Yeah.
Just like that time I asked what 100 times 11 was? Yeah.
But that's a good question. I mean, these other ones here. Human Services Resource Council, where there's 9 vacancies, consists of 3 representatives from each commissioner district. So there are 9 vacancies on the council with vacancies in all the
So
commissioner
there's
districts.
15 total, 9 of them are
9
vacant.
out of 15.
Yeah.
That's not bad.
Get some people.
The Board of Adjustment and Planning Advisory Commission is comprised of 7 members as well. 1 from each commissioner district and 2 at-large positions. So again, they're all up, all 7 of them. Why would you not go fill those up if you have the opportunity to get your people together, get your BPOU leaders talking, and go fill it up? The other 2 that are there are Personal Board of Appeals, 1 vacancy, and Scott Watershed Planning Commission, and 2 vacancies. So there's a lot of stuff. If you want to get into governing at the ground level, start building a resume if you ever think you want to run for city council. But even if you don't, just to get some skin in the game, and self-government is so important. I know you had mentioned that Crystal had just had some vacancies.
Well, they are doing everything once a year now, trying to fill these. The deadline was October 30th, but I'm guessing
if they don't fill them, they'll stay open.
And they're doing interviews the whole month of November. They've made a special appeal for the Crystal Outreach Task Force, which is kind of replace the Human Rights Commission in a lot of ways.
Okay.
And it's much better. But they're planning another Crystal Ball in March, I believe.
Fantastic.
Yeah, it was a masquerade one last year. It was very popular. Mm-hmm. They want to do another one. It's kind of, I think the thought behind it is, it came from Elizabeth Dahl, by the way, from Ward 1 is kind of the point person for that. Came from like Night to Unite. You met with small groups.
Yes.
You met with the people like on your block. And the Crystal Ball was one of those ideas to take all of those people on those blocks and get them all, kind of like the Frolics or Airport Days, have another one of those. So that's a thing coming to Crystal. I don't know. I'm sure all the vacancies aren't filled. So contact Crystal City Hall. If there are interests in that. They have a charter commission, they have a park board,
right?
They have a planning commission, they have all sorts of things. So I don't know what the scoop is. We were a little late on that. I didn't realize it was happening so fast, but I kind of like doing it once a year. I don't really care for the people coming in halfway and then filling out this or that. It's I think if you get people used to one time where they apply,
right,
I think you're going to see more participation, because then there's nothing on it. There's no urgency to do anything. So I think it's a good idea that they've done this.
Well, I think if there's vacancies, I think they should look to fill those year round. But I think as well, if they made a drive once a year to say, all right, we're making.
I think that's more what it is.
Yeah.
So, yep. So
wow,
what's going on too?
So that's good. So check your city and your county to see if they've got those same openings. It's so important to get on a commission. So there you go. That is the local lowdown. And now what you've all been waiting for, ranked choice voting. So Andrew, we've got a couple of cities that have taken this on in Minnesota. It seems crazy. To me, there's a lot of discussion, and they can make it sound really good, and the other side can make it sound really bad. I mean, I would hope that we'd provide some insight and kind of, a balanced approach to this. Basically, what ranked choice voting is, it's a method of voting where you pick, like, your top 3 people. You're allowed to vote for more than one.
It replaces a primary.
Yes, it does.
So instead of going, say, from 4 candidates to 2, they all go to the general. I have to say that, just so you would not have a primary for this. Right.
And the idea is that, they say, well, if I'm not your first, candidates will often say this, if I'm not your first, at least consider me for your second. With the idea being that enough second place votes, if somebody didn't get the first place votes all the time, and maybe not even a third place vote, that you would get enough second place votes to rank ahead of the person who technically comes in first place. And we're going to explain it.
It's
It'll make
strange.
more sense. It is strange.
If I could add one caveat to this.
Yes.
Some of this came out of, you've heard of runoff voting.
Yes.
A lot of southern states have this.
Yes, they do.
If somebody doesn't get 50% of the vote,
Yep.
there's a runoff. Now, I say, what's the difference between that and a primary? I don't get it. But it's to ensure that a candidate got 50% of the vote.
Right.
Louisiana has this. Georgia has this. It's in a handful of other states. I remember one year Saxby Chambliss from Georgia won the election, but he came like 100 votes short of 50%. And then in December, I don't recall what year this was, because there was a libertarian it was one of those deals, even though Chambliss won by a wide margin, because he didn't hit the 50% mark. Sometime in like the second week of December, there was a runoff election, and then he won that by a fairly wide margin too. I think it was like 15 point. He won pretty handily. When it was him against the Democrat, it was he won easy. Yeah, and you people at home can Google what year that was. 2010, maybe. I don't really recall. But anyway, 2008 it might have been. So it's kind of a variation of that. And they make some interesting claims. I think the big push is coming from people outside the two-party system. I mean, look, I can understand frustration with the two-party system. I get it. And I have no problem with Libertarian candidate, Independent candidate, Green Party candidate. I have got no issue with them being on the ballot whatsoever.
No, and I think that we should have easier access to the ballot. Making these third parties jump through hoops the way they do is ridiculous.
True. And Minnesota is actually one of the better states for that.
Right.
But some states, like I know Pennsylvania, the Democrats there had changed because they wanted to keep Ralph Nader off the ballot. This is a while ago.
Right.
This might have been the Bush-Kerry election where they changed that he had to get all these signatures to get on the ballot or something like that. It was just
that's how it works. They have to get like a certain number or a certain percentage of the voting people who are either registered or are meet the voting requirements, in order to get on the ballot. And that's true in a lot of places across the country.
Right. It is strange. I mean, it is, so there's that aspect of it as well. We've seen this happen. The whole state of Maine is considering going to rate. That's apparently held up in court right now. I don't know if that's going to happen, but they make a lot of claims here that really have not come to fruition. Right. I should mention this. In 2014, in Crystal, our home base, the Charter Commission had a debate, which I support. I support ranked choice voting debate.
Right.
I support the facts coming out. I support both sides making their case.
But that's rarely what happens.
And I'll tell you what, if it wasn't for a handful of people in Crystal, it would have never happened.
Right.
They had a meeting in April of 2014 where the entire presentation was completely one-sided in favor of ranked choice voting.
Well, that's the way that city staff always does it. They find what they want to implement, they get the sales literature, and then...
Here's a caveat to that. I'm not convinced it was the staff. I think it was one or two members of the Charter Commission who kind of had this as their personal agenda.
Okay.
And a few citizens and a few other members were, hey, wait a second here. Why did we only get one side of this?
Right.
Why aren't we getting both sides? And so it became in June, somebody from the Minneapolis Charter Commission, a man named Devin Rice, came to present the opposite side. And once the opposite side came in, pretty much no one wanted to go forward with it. Maybe one or two people did, but it died a quick death in ranked choice. It has come up a few times still since. I know there were some city council people who were still trying to push it for ideological reasons or whatever.
Right.
But the basic premise that I think it's being pushed by, like we said about libertarians, Green Party members, is they want to get on the ballot, and they don't want and I'm talking about more the city level, not so much the state level.
Right.
That they don't want to get ousted in primaries. They want to be on the ballot in November. Mm-hmm. And like I said, I can understand frustration with the two-party system, but I think the solution to that is to get your people out in the primary.
I think so,
not
too.
eliminate my ability to have a primary.
Exactly. And I think it ends up being a false choice. I mean, getting out in the primary, you decide who versus who. And I can see where it can work kind of the same way. I mean, if you have things organized well enough. But usually, and especially in a place like Minneapolis, it's just you take the people you know are Democrats and you rank them 1, 2, 3 in order of preference. You know?
You're choosing to get shot, hanged, or electrocuted.
Yeah, and I know that some conservatives, or maybe libertarians, have made the argument that, well, with ranked choice voting, it's easier, if we had enough second votes for our candidate to possibly win. And I don't see that that's even come close to being true. I know Cam Winton didn't come close to getting the mayorship in Minneapolis. I know that
there's been Green Party members that have fallen short.
Yeah.
There's one or two, I think, that have won in Minneapolis. But it's ranking the Green Party 1, the two DFL candidates 2 and 3.
Yeah.
Kind of a false choice, if you ask me, but
right.
That's the whole point. I just, again, they've made a lot of claims, and this Commissioner Rice pretty much debunked all of them.
Yes.
And again, claim number one is, well, we eliminate primaries, we save money. Well, not really. You're holding, first off, the number one problem with ranked choice voting is spoiled ballots.
Yes.
Okay, and you're in a city like Minneapolis, and we got same-day voter registration and all that kind of stuff, and it has not saved a nickel. Minneapolis elections have actually gotten more expensive since they implemented, in 2009, when they implemented ranked choice voting. The opposite has happened. So there's no evidence that this is cheap. Again, this is I'm presenting one side and then the facts behind it.
Right.
That there's no that there is no saving in money. The other thing, it would increase voter turnout. It's done no such thing.
Huh.
Now, if you look again, odd-year elections, which are an anomaly, and that's Minneapolis' fault.
Yes, it is.
But you've seen no increase in turnout in Minneapolis.
They really don't care how you vote. They're not going to come.
Right. I mean, it really isn't doing anything.
Yeah.
They've made claims that you'd have to win with a majority vote, and we know that that's not true either.
Exactly.
Betsy Hodges never got a majority of the vote.
No.
And she's the mayor,
Well, for a while.
Yeah, but I mean,
for a couple more months, she'll be the mayor.
Yeah, but I mean, she never got 50% of the first place votes or whatever is required, and they've also talked about more minorities being represented. I don't think elections are affirmative action programs, but I guess to some they are. And we've seen none of that. We've seen no more minorities have been elected in Minneapolis than were there previously. So it's failed to deliver in what they've claimed. And I think spoiled ballots. Let me tell you something. As somebody who's been an election judge in Minneapolis, I've had a hard time getting people to decide between two candidates, let alone ranking them 1 through 41.
Right.
I mean, how many people ran the last time in 2013 when it was Minneapolis mayor?
There were so many.
It was like 30 candidates.
Captain Jack Sparrow and Cam Winton.
It was a circus.
Yeah.
So, again...
Free weed party.
Yeah.
They were
whatever.
All
I mean, freedom of speech here. So I think it's... again, just like a roundabout, it's a solution in search of a problem.
Right.
And I see no reason to implement it anywhere else. But I'm telling you, Duluth, we had mentioned Duluth, they had a referendum on it, I want to say 2014 or so, and it was voted down pretty handily. But I think you're seeing a lot of charter cities in particular are going to debate ranked choice voting and have it. They can write that. Cities are free to write that in their charter.
They sure are.
Statutory cities is a little more touchy, but charter cities can do that, and I think you're going to see, if the two biggest cities in Minnesota do something, you're going to see other cities look at that and consider that.
Right, and thinking about how statutory cities can't really elect to do this, but yet at the same time, if you had enough people that came up through the ranks of ranked choice voting and supported it, they could totally write that into the state statutes. I mean, yeah, it's a long ball game, but it's not out of the realm of possibility either, Andrew.
Yeah, I mean, definitely not, and I think it continues to keep... I think, by the way, let me just back up a sec.
Yeah.
We are community solutions. Okay?
That's right.
Solutions being the big thing. We don't just whine and moan and crab on this show.
No.
Okay? We propose solutions. And I think the ultimate solution to this is two-pronged. One, we need better turnout at primaries, and we need to get rid of an August primary. That's the dumbest time to have a primary. It's going to have to be moved up. Mm-hmm. The election cycle is too compressed as it is. I also, the spoiled ballots is a problem. I mean, what happens if somebody puts 1, 2, and they don't put a 3?
Right.
Is their ballot spoiled? I mean, if I make any mark outside of the little bubble when I'm voting for president or congressman or whatever, you can consider that a spoiled ballot.
Yeah.
So, I mean, there's spoiled ballots, and you talk about disenfranchising people, people who hardly speak English, or sometimes they have a hard time understanding vote for this guy or this guy. So that's a big issue. I also think we've got to encourage more people to run. I mean, this is to me what a lot of this boils down to. You talk about having primaries, you talk about having choice. Well, if somebody runs unopposed, or if there's only one person running against them, I mean, we went through this in Crystal. Last time there was no primaries at all. We only had 2 people running in each election.
Yep.
So isn't the solution to this, if you're a Green Party, if you're Libertarian, if you're Independent, if you just hate everybody, okay, isn't the solution to have 5, 6, F7, 8 people run in a primary and then have those 2 people run forward?
Yeah.
Isn't that better than picking 1 through 8, the people that I want, or whatever it is, I don't know, having 30 names on a ballot?
Yeah. Yeah.
So, yes, we are community solutions.
Yes.
So, yeah.
I would agree with that. That it is a solution in search of a problem, and are there any numbers, have you seen, like, communities that have actually gone forward and accepted this? I mean, I know, again, this is a nationwide movement.
There's some in California, I know, that have done that. I believe Oakland is one. We could Google that quick, but I know there's a handful. Alameda County, I know that is one place that has it.
Yes, it does.
There's, like I said, there's variations with, like, runoffs where they don't have primaries, but they have, if you don't get 50% of the vote. I can remember one year in Louisiana where Mary Landrieu was running for re-election, and she had 3 Republicans running against her because they don't have primaries.
Right.
And she won but failed to get 50% of the vote, just like Saxby Chambliss.
Right.
And then had to have another election against the top voter on the other side. Now, my question is, why don't the Republicans just have a primary and pick the candidate?
Yeah.
What did that accomplish?
Absolutely.
But like I said, there's states that have, they call them runoff elections. If you don't get 50%, there's congressional seats that do that.
Yeah.
Not many, but there's a handful. I'm interested to see what happens in Maine with this. It's tied up in court, but Maine is also a state that separates its electoral votes. because
Yeah.
President Trump won
Part of it.
one electoral out of the 4.
Right.
They have 4 electoral votes. 2 go to the state winner, and then 1 goes to each district. And Mrs. Clinton won the Portland, the urban one, and President Trump won the more rural district. And they have that in Nebraska too, but President Trump won all of them.
Yes.
So you didn't see that. But I think President Obama won one in Nebraska against John
Yes.
McCain.
Yes, he did.
Yeah, did he? I could be wrong about that, but I know Mitt Romney won them all too. But so that's I'm interested to see how that shakes out there too. I mean, because then you'd have hypothetically Gary Johnson or Jill Stein or somebody getting more second place votes. Like I would have ranked my ballot. Trump 1, Gary Johnson 2, maybe
Darrell Bradley, maybe 3.
Yeah, or Darrell Castle. I think was his
Darrell
name.
Castle.
Yeah, that's probably how I would have gone.
Yeah.
So it'd be interesting to see where they'd end up, even though I still think that that's the wrong way to vote.
Yeah.
So you could have seen, how somebody like Jill Stein, or if somebody like Bernie Sanders were to run, or something like he could have been on the ballot. Just a weird dynamic of what's going to happen in Maine if that goes forward in 2018.
Right.
But like I said, either way, you're going to see more and more of this pop up throughout the country, I think. And there's a group pushing it called fairvote.org.
Oh, well, it's fair, Andrew. That should be good.
Well, again, they're marketing it very well. Benefits of ranked choice voting, and I don't know. If no candidate has more than half the first place votes, candidates go into an instant runoff. However, again, I say, what's the difference between that and a primary?
Right.
And they make the same old arguments, provides more choice, mitigates the money, which I don't buy. There's going to be money everywhere in politics. And so I think it hasn't lived up to its billing. You haven't seen cheaper races. There's money all over the place in Minneapolis right now.
Yeah.
And part of that is odd year. There's that anomaly of the odd year elections where there's just only so many elections. But
Right.
I don't think it's going to live up. I don't think it has, and I don't think it's going to live up to anything. I think it's just people frustrated with the two-party system who just want to get rid of it, and they really don't care about the unintended consequences of it.
Right. And like in Minneapolis, I think it reinforces it because they rank, in most cases, their top 3 Democrats in the order that they like them. How would it work out in the suburbs? I mean, we really don't have any clue. But, that's the thing. When you're working with nonpartisans, I mean, that's a whole different thing. And why would you need to have this system when there aren't parties? If you're a third-party person, you already have that opportunity. And a primary, nobody restricts you from running as long as you file on time.
Right. And here's the great thing. You can be endorsed by a party and not have to declare it.
Yeah.
Which doesn't happen at the other levels. We know candidates that have been endorsed by the Green Party or the DFL or the Republicans or the Libertarians or whoever. Maybe not endorsed, maybe is not the right word, but affiliated with them. You grab the ballot. You don't see that. This is your chance to win an election without that label being a hindrance or an advantage.
Right.
And you run, you win on your own merits. There are... I'm trying to find where they have I know they've got it somewhere about how many ranked choice cities there are, but let's see. I mean, there's not a ton. Ranked choice voting is used to elect officers in 11 cities today.
Across the country.
Across the country. But it's
they're burning it up.
But it's being debated in a lot. And I also would like to know, and I don't know the answer to this.
Yeah.
If you're voting ranked choice voting on the city level, what are you voting on, say, the presidential level, the governor level, the congressman level? Like, let's just pretend Crystal implemented it.
Right.
Okay, they're a charter city. They can. Minnesota state law says they can. So what is that? Does that have an impact on the bigger elections?
I don't I don't think they can do it because that's
I don't think
that's
so either.
Governed by the Secretary of State.
Yeah, I don't think they can either. But imagine how confusing it is to walk into my city council race and have to rank them 1, 2. What if only 2 people are running? And then I get to the other questions and I have to vote. I mean, I can see where spoiled ballots are going to be all over the place.
Absolutely.
So it's
I'm voting for my favorite 3 for city council, and so I'll vote for my favorite 3 for president.
If you have a favorite 3. Yeah, and what if you run into a case where somebody's unopposed or somebody? I mean, can I make write-in other? Can I have other? None of the above.
Yeah. Well, and that's the thing. Right now, I mean, you can do write-in votes for.
Yeah, how do you write in for? How do you rank your write-in people?
Yeah, I don't know how you do that. You can't. I suppose you would personally rank it, but I mean, then
But who's tallying up the first place votes for the write-in candidate? I mean, it'd be it'd be pretty strange. I just think, again, this is I'm just going to tell you, especially if you live in a charter city, your charter commission at some point is going to debate this. I know that's not most cities in Minnesota,
right?
But it should be. I like charter cities.
You all should be charter cities, and that way you make your own city constitution versus,
kicking whatever the state hands you down.
Exactly. This is from a Star Tribune article, so it must be true. But, I believe it. Ranked choice voting is flawed. Minneapolis knows it is the name of the article. And it said that in 2009, where'd it go? In all, 10.5% of the votes cast in the 2009 city election were spoiled ballots or contained voter errors.
My goodness. So 1 out of 10 people had their votes
thrown out.
Counted.
Yeah.
So how do we know in Ward blah, 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 that person really got a majority of the vote, which is supposed to be eliminated by this system?
Yeah, exactly. I mean, this is supposed to give people more of a voice. To me, this restricts voting. This is not more people get a voice. This is the people who can't understand the system don't get a voice.
Yeah, and I mean, and again, I think it's just going to be extra confusing. And to have 10.5% ballots thrown out, Minneapolis should be ashamed of themselves. And I don't understand how anybody thinks this is a solution to anything. It's crazy.
Exactly. I mean, they cry now about, people don't know how to get the proper kind of ID so they can come and vote, or people don't know how to get to the polls, or people don't know how, and you expect them to be able to understand a system where already 10.5% of the ballots are being cast out.
Yeah, and what do you want to bet? Those are minorities.
Yeah.
Those are elderly folks who voted one way for 80 years.
Yeah.
And now are doing it's the most vulnerable people that are probably having their ballots cast aside.
Which is just a shame.
Yeah, and it's just the opposite of what we're told that this is going to do.
Right.
And again, I mean, I understand frustration with the two-party system. It doesn't have, if half the people, you got half the people in this country who vote. If you other half would do something other than sit and complain, maybe we'd have this country would look a lot differently.
Yeah.
Whatever. I mean, again, whatever side you're on or not on a side or whatever. But I think messing with how we vote is dangerous. It's a dangerous route to go down. And who says it's going to stop at ranked choice voting? Who says it's going to stop there? May go further. I don't know what that would be, but if you're going to change how we vote now, after 240 years, I worry about things like national popular vote, which is something I am really afraid of.
Well, and as things get more electronic, I mean, will it be at a point somewhere where we can just register and vote from home?
It's going to get to that point someday. I don't know if it's in our lifetimes.
How do you verify? How do things not get hacked?
Oh, I think that's why we don't have it.
Right.
Because we don't have those safeguards.
No, we don't yet.
And the hackers, the criminals are always ahead of law enforcement.
Yeah.
It's not law enforcement's fault. It's just the private sector is very innovative, and they'll come up with ways.
Yes, they will.
So I don't think we'll see that anytime now, but I think that that's coming. I mean, think about it, Jay. We're voting earlier. Mm-hmm. We're voting. I saw a statistic. I don't know how accurate this is, but the 2016 elections, 22% of the country voted before Election Day.
Yeah.
That's almost 1 out of 4. And there's states like Florida where you can go in and vote the Thursday, the Friday. Minnesota, 40 days out, you can request an absentee ballot. I mean, think about it. We have a primary in the middle of August, and by like September 27th, somebody has a ballot in their hand.
That's crazy. Yeah. You don't have a chance to know anybody.
Yeah. So, and remember, we're not just talking about voting for president. We're not just talking. That's different. We're talking about every single election on that ballot.
Yeah.
So I think we're headed in those directions, whether we like it or not. That's where it's going. And look, some of this has been good. Some of the Help of America Vote Act, if you want to go back to that from 2002,
right,
which got rid of hanging chads and all that kind of stuff. I think that was a positive. But there's something about voting 40 days before an election that is just eats me the wrong way. And when 1 out of 4 people almost, and that number is only going to go up, are voting before election. And again, that statistic might not be right, and I don't know what the definition of that is.
Yeah.
If I got an absentee ballot and cast it the day before because I'm not in town, that's a little different. But I think somebody early voting, I think is, you got same-day registration. I mean, there's a lot that goes on Election Day, and ranked choice voting, to me, is just another monkey wrench thrown in with everything else, from vouching to same-day registration, to early voting, to absentee voting. I mean, it's already a mess. I mean, there's no going to the polls Election Day.
When has making something more complex ever been a good thing? Look at our tax system.
Yeah, no kidding. Look at the football quarterback rating. I mean, look, everything is more complex, and I think some of it's well-intentioned, but well-intentions, we all know, are nightmares.
Yeah, it's true.
Always unintended consequences.
But only 11 cities might use this right now in the United States, and I think a lot more have discussed it and shot it down, but it doesn't mean it doesn't keep coming back. It's something that worldwide, I mean, there's been a push for this.
Yes.
Australia uses it. Mm-hmm. Canada uses it. Czech Republic, Hong Kong, India, Ireland, New Zealand, Papua New Guinea, United Kingdom. I mean, United States, obviously we know, uses it in some places, but I mean that's.
Remember, at one time only 11 cities had roundabouts.
Yeah.
Remember, at one time only 11 cities were part of Green Step.
Right.
And look what happened. So who's to say this is not, again, Minnesota with charter cities, a little different. Mm-hmm. But who says, if a whole state is thinking about, that's 1 out of 50.
Yeah.
Could be 5 out of 50 pretty soon. And what do you want to bet? Somebody in a state capital is thinking about introducing that into some committee.
Absolutely.
So, I mean, it's the same thing like we say, local level, though, is where this stuff starts.
Yes.
And if you want something to not end up in St. Paul, you got to beat it in your own backyard. If you don't, just like, smoking going up to 21, just things like that, minimum wage, you're seeing these these issues shift away from statewide into local. Okay, we'll pick off this city, then this city will see what we did, we'll pick off that city, and that's where it's going to go, and this is no different.
Right, and, for us to say that, we just want to run for the state seats. I mean, it does not do you any good. I mean, it doesn't do you any good to ignore those seats. You still have to have people to send to St. Paul, to Washington, that are good people, but you do that by starting at the local level. And we've harped on this so many times.
Yeah, but I mean, that's the thing. Until you create, if you're not part of the two-party system, okay, I'm just going to say this straight out, you are not going to win big elections till you win small elections.
Yes. Until
the demand is there for you to advance statewide, or countrywide, you're never going to go anywhere.
Right.
And that's not a knock on third parties. But if I were a guy like Gary Johnson, I would clone myself 5,000 times and put one of run for city council, run for county. That's what I'd be doing. And then when there's a groundswell of those people elected, then maybe running for president is feasible.
Yeah.
But unfortunately, it's always done the opposite. I mean, think about third parties like this. Think about how many people voted for Ross Perot, and how many people voted for Jesse Ventura, and Tim Penny, and people like that here in Minnesota. Whatever you think of them, I'm not
making a statement on them.
I'm just saying, look at the demand for a third party was there. People wanted another choice, especially here. Ross Perot did extremely well here. I think he got 28% of the vote in 1992.
Yeah.
He did very well. And, of course, Jesse Ventura won. And we've seen other people, Dean Barkley, we've seen him get double digits.
Yeah.
Why aren't they running for mayor or county commissioner or...
arguably, Jesse Ventura did.
Well, true, mayor of Brooklyn Park. But
yeah, and that's part of...
Hey, he had more experience than some people I've seen run for governor as well.
Yeah.
So, I mean, Brooklyn Park's a large city. That's not like you're running for mayor of Garrison. No offense on Garrison, but there's 200 people there.
Right.
I mean, he was in charge of a big city. So, I mean, you could say that he did get his start there. But, the point is that before you're going to win, Jesse Ventura was an anomaly. Before you win a race like that 99 times out of 100, you've got to make waves somewhere else and show people that your ideas work.
Yes.
Before they're going to take you seriously as a bigger candidate. It's just a fact. And I wish that would happen, not because I want to change who I vote for, but I am one. I think more is better. I would love to have more choice at all levels.
Yeah.
I think our system is better when we have more choice, not less.
Well, and as George Washington said, that parties would kind of be the death of us. It would not be good for the republic. It would be better for us to not have political parties.
Yeah, a lot of the founders didn't want them, even though it was natural that was going to happen.
Right.
And we could go on all day about Hamilton and Jefferson squabbling in Washington's cabinet and them kind of unintentionally starting the Federalists versus the Democratic Republicans or whatever you want to call them. And so it was kind of unintentional. And I don't think the two-party system really happened until Jackson's time.
Right.
But, voters also need to know where candidates stand. And I think there's, that's what I love about the nonpartisan races, is that there isn't that bias there. Mm-hmm. People really do take people for who they are. And I think, again, having more people vote in a primary, you got to come out. Voting in the primary is just as important as voting. And going to your caucus is just as important. It's just as important as voting in November.
Yeah.
And we've just got to change that mentality.
Absolutely. I can't believe how, in a presidential year, how busy caucuses are. And then in a gubernatorial year, they're small.
Yeah, and I can't believe it when I see more people attend caucus than vote in a primary.
Yeah.
I mean, we probably had an SD 45. I would guess the Republicans and the Democrats probably had 3,000, 4,000, 5,000 people attend caucus. Mm-hmm. You think 5,000 people voted from Crystal, New Hope, and Robbinsdale in the primary on August 16th, if you even had one?
No.
I mean, New Hope, they didn't have one at a city level.
No.
So, I mean, and I remember 2014, it was very low turnout at the primaries. I think it's a tragedy that happens. It's nothing we should brag about as a country.
No, I mean, be involved in the process from start to finish, A lot of you that go to caucus, and then we don't see you again for 4 years. Some of you 2 years, some of you 4 years. You got to be involved, and whether you might not get selected to be a delegate or alternate and go on to, the convention process. and that's
Hey, I didn't the first year I ran.
Yeah,
or I attended a caucus.
well, I've always been popular, I guess, but no,
I became popular later.
But my point is that you have to stay involved and find a committee to get involved in, or go to your city and get into a commission.
Well, and there's always campaigns to volunteer on.
Always.
People running for state legislature and things like that. I
People
think
running for city council need your help.
Yeah, so, we got February 6th, which I know seems like it's a ways away, but folks, it ain't that far off.
No, it's 3 months?
Yeah, I mean, it's not far. So, get to know where yours is. Plan on attending. I don't care what party you are. The worst thing you can do that night is stay home.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. Second worst thing you can do is go home afterwards and stay disengaged. Yeah, I'm serious about this, though. It's like we've got these people that love to complain about the political state of America, but yet I think that they just like complaining because they don't do anything about it. They don't get involved. They don't try to volunteer. At the city level, at the county level, at the BPOU level, and so what good are you doing by just being a serial complainer?
Got me.
Complaining doesn't get you anywhere. Actually putting your ideas into action, that gets you somewhere. Putting in some hard work, making some phone calls, pounding the pavement and dropping lit, all of that stuff.
World's run by the people who show up.
It is. They say that, and that trivializes it maybe for you, but don't let it. Don't let it trivialize things for you. You need to understand that it's as true as can be.
Well, on that note, I think we gave ranked choice voting a little spanking. Maybe we gave you some information. Maybe you didn't hear about this beforehand. I mean, I didn't know anything about it till about 2011 or so when I was involved with CD5 and there were elections going on then. Like, what the heck are they talking about? Ranked choice voting? And I was somebody involved. I wasn't somebody just on the sidelines. And, and a few years later, it was being debated in our hometown, or my hometown, your current town. So it's something that you're going to hear more about. I'm just telling you, fairvote.org is out there. I think they seem to be well funded, and they're going to. I think it's supported by a lot of third parties, and you're going to see this issue keep coming up.
I think you're right. Maybe you're sitting on a city council right now, and you can turn to this podcast as the one that kind of set you straight, or gave you a true north heading on ranked choice voting.
Everybody turns to this podcast for one reason or another.
Some it's to throw vegetables at their. I guess it would be now their phone.
Yeah, not the radio. Yeah, well, that's fine. I'm sure it's insured.
Yes. So stay involved, guys. Get involved. Get on a commission and start thinking about caucus and what you're going to do between now and then after caucus is done. How can you get involved and stay involved? You have a question about how you can do that? Let us know. Ask us, and we'll be more than happy to share our knowledge with you. That is why we are here, to make sure that you are the local heroes of your area, your community, so that your neighbors, your family, your friends, they know what's going on in the city because you told them and you found out right here. Best way that you can do that, one is word of mouth. The other is sharing our articles, sharing our podcasts, and making sure that people know. Also, if you're involved in a group and you want to know more about this, we would love to come talk to you. Let us know, and we'll arrange something. We'll come give a keynote out at your group, and we can talk about ranked choice voting, or we can talk about how to get activists engaged. We can talk about roundabouts or comprehensive plans. So to do that, or if you're interested in running your whatever, get a hold of us, commsolutionsmn@gmail.com. commsolutionsmn@gmail.com. This podcast, our articles all show up at our blog, commsolutionsmn.com. We're on Twitter. We're on Instagram. We're on Facebook. We're all over the place. You can't avoid us. We're coming for you. No, seriously, the more you share, the more you do that. I mean, we're super grateful for it. Thank you. But the more it's going to help your community. So thank you guys so much. We love you, Minnesota. Now it's time for you to get to work.
Take my life, caught a break between the lines. Don't let me